Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Andalas. The Honorable Professor Joni Hartono, President of the Indonesian Regional Science Association. The Honorable Rizal Ridwan PhD, Head of the Department of Economics, Universitas Andalas. The Honorable Dr. Elvina Primayesa, Chair of the Organizing Committee. Distinguished speakers, Professor Arief Anshory Yusuf from Universitas Padjadjaran, Professor Werry Darta Taifur from Universitas Andalas, and Professor Budy P. Resosudarmo from the Australian National University. Our respected moderators, Ms. Ratni Ramadhani, MSA, and Ms. Rahmi Abzi, MSA. Distinguished lecturers, researchers, students, and all participants of the Hendra Esmara Lecture Series 2026. Praise be to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Allah grace and blessing, we are able to gather here this morning in good health to participate in the Hendra Esmara Lecture Series 2026 with the theme Inequality and Development Economics. May this event serve as a platform to broaden our knowledge, exchange ideas, and strengthen academic collaboration in the field of economics. Ladies and gentlemen, to begin today's event, may I invite everyone to rise and join us in singing the Indonesian national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Please rise. Thank you. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to invite the Vice Rector of Universitas Andalas. May I respectfully invite Dr. Hafizal Handra to deliver his remarks.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, our distinguished guests, Professor Budy Resosudarmo, Professor Arief Anshory Yusuf, Professor Werry Darta Taifur, and also I suppose Professor Joni Hartono, who will be joining through online. The Dean of Faculty of Economics and Business, Dr. Werry Andrianus, also our invited deans of faculty. distinguished speaker, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to Universitas Andalas for Hendra Esmara Lecture Series 2026. I think this is the third, yeah. Okay, yeah. First of all, allow me to convey the warm greeting of the Rector of Universitas Andalas. He is unfortunately unable to attend this event due to another official commitment. It is therefore my honor to represent him in opening this important academic event, Hendra Esmara Lecture Series. Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather not only to discuss development economics, but also to honor the intellectual legacy of Professor Hendra Esmara, one of Indonesia's pioneering development economists, and one of the Universitas Andalas' most distinguished scholar. His work on regional development and economic inequality continues to inspire both academic research and public policy. Today's lecture is a fitting tribute to his enduring contribution. And the theme of this year's lecture, Inequality and Development Economics. I think it is highly relevant to Indonesia's current development agenda. While our economy has grown significantly over a recent decade, important challenges remain, such as reducing inequality, accelerating structural transformation, improving education, and ensuring that our rich natural resources generate prosperity for all Indonesians. These are precisely the kinds of issues that universities must help address through rigorous research, open dialogue, and evidence-based policy recommendations. We are therefore honored to welcome distinguished scholars from Universitas Padjadjaran, the Australian National University, especially Indonesia Project, and other leading institutions. Their participation reflects the importance of collaboration in advancing both academic excellence and sound public policy. Especially to our students and young researchers at Andalas University, I encourage you to actively participate in today's discussion. Great ideas often begin with thoughtful questions. And today's speakers represent some of the finest scholars in development economics. Finally, on behalf of Universitas Andalas, I sincerely thanks to the Dean of the Faculty of Economics and Business, the organizing committee, and our partners, especially Indonesia Project, Australian National University, and all research collaboration and contribute to more inclusive and sustainable economic development in Indonesia. With the grace of Almighty God and on behalf of the Rector of Universitas Andalas, I thank you all and have a nice discussion. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Hafrizal Handra, for your inspiring remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now proceed to the next agenda, the opening remarks by the Dean of Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Andalas. May I invite Dr. Werry Adrianus to deliver his opening remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Good morning, distinguished Rector Universitas Andalas, represented by Vice Rector on Finance, Dr. Afrizal Hendra, distinguished Professor Arief Anshory Yusuf, distinguished Professor Werry Darta Taifur, distinguished Professor Budy P. Resosudarmo, Professor Joni Hartono, President of Indonesian Regional Science Association, distinguished scholars, colleagues, policymakers, representative of partner institutions, dear students, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure on behalf of the Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Andalas, to welcome all of you to the third Hendra Esmara Lecture series. Universities are often recognized for their graduates, research, and reputation. Yet their most lasting contribution lies in the idea they bring to society. Ideas that shape how we understand develop. Ideas that inform better policy. Ideas that inspire future generations. This is the spirit behind the Hendra Esmara Lecture series. Ladies and gentlemen, this lecture series honors the legacy of Professor Hendra Esmara, one of Indonesia's pioneering development economists. He was among the first Indonesian scholars to emphasize that development must be understood from a regional perspective with careful attention to local resource, institutions, and opportunities. His work on regional income, disparities, and planning laid an important foundation for regional development analysis in Indonesia. His contribution continue to influence scholars, policymakers, and development practitioners today. And his legacy has social meaning. Profesor Hendra Esmara helped establish in the Lembaga Penelitian Ekonomi Regional. Through this institution, Universitas Andalas strengthened its role in national and international discussion on regional development. Today, we are not only remembering an accomplished scholar, we are also to continue an academic tradition that believes research should inform policy and universities should contribute directly to society. Ladies and gentlemen, this spirit is closely aligned with the vision of Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas Andalas. We aim to strengthen our position as internationally recognized faculty in economics, management, and accounting, while remaining firm committed to Indonesia development. We continue to improve educational quality, expand international collaboration, strengthen global relevant research, and encourage community engagement based on scientific knowledge. The theme of this year's lecture series, Inequality and Development Economic, is highly relevant to the challenges we face today. Economic growth remains important, but growth alone is not enough. Development must reduce inequality, expand opportunity, strengthen human capabilities, and improve quality of life across society. These challenges are becoming more complex. Digital transformation is changing labor market. Climate change is testing economic resilience. Geopolitical uncertainty is affecting global continue to shape welfare and opportunity across communities. Addressing this issue requires strong economic analysis, but also collaboration across discipline, institutions, and countries. That is why this lecture series remains important. To all participants, especially our students and young scholars, I encourage you to make the most of today's discussion. Listen carefully, ask talk question, and build a new connection. May these lectures series generate meaningful ideas, inspire future collaboration, and contribute to more inclusive, equitable, and sustainable Indonesia. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Werry Adrianus, for your welcoming remarks and valuable message. Next, let us listen to the opening remarks by the President of the Indonesian Regional Science Association. May I invite Professor Joni Hartono to deliver his opening remarks.
Thank you, Mbak Rati. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and warm greetings to all of us. The Honorable Vice Rector Universitas Andalas, Dr. Hefriza Handra, the Honorable Dean of the Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas Andalas, Dr. Werry Adrianus, the Head of the Department of Economics, Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas Andalas, and Rizal Ridwan, PhD, our distinguished keynote speaker, Professor Arief Anshory Yusuf, our distinguished panel speaker, Professor Werry Darta Taifur, and Professor Budy Resosudarmo, our moderator, Reti Ramadhani, distinguished guests, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, allow me to thank the Vice Rector and the Dean from his opening remarks and for the excellent hospitality of the Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas Andalas. On behalf of the Indonesian Regional Science Association, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to Universitas Andalas, the Australian National University, Indonesian Project, the Department of Economics, and the organizing committee for making the important lecture possible. It is a great honor for the Indonesian Regional Science Association to be part of the third Hendra Esmara Lecture on Regional Development. This lecture is not only on academic event, but also a way to honor the intellectual legacy of the late Professor Hendra Esmara, who contributed significantly to regional analysis and development thinking in Indonesia. For Indonesian Regional Science Association, this lecture has special meaning. Regional development remains one of the most important policy challenges in Indonesia. As a large and diverse archipelagic country, Indonesian development cannot be understood only through national efforts. We need to understand differences across region, sector, household, and institution. We need to ask why some regions grow faster, why some communities benefit more from development, and why others remain left behind. This is why today's theme is very relevant. The lecture by Professor Arief Anshory Yusuf, entitled 70 Years of Kuznets Curve, is education a facilitator of structural transformation or a driver of inequality? Raises a fundamental question: is development economics? Education is often seen as a key driver of mobility, productivity, and transformation. However, when access and quality are unequal, education may also reproduce or even widen inequality. The question is particularly important for Indonesia. We have made significant progress in expanding education, but regional differences in educational quality, labor market opportunities, and return to education remain important. Therefore, the relationship between education, structural transformation, and inequality deserve careful academic and policy discussion. The second session on extractive industries and regional inequality is also highly relevant. Natural resources can support regional development, but they can also create dependency environmental pressure, and unequal distribution of benefit. The key issue is not only whether a region has natural resources, but whether these resources are governed in a way that support inclusive and sustainable development. I hope today's lecture and discussion will provide us with fresh insight, not only for academic debate, but also for better policy thinking. I also hope this forum will strengthen collaboration among Universitas Andalas, Indonesian Regional Science Association, Australian National University Indonesia Project, and also scholars who care about regional development Indonesia. To the student and young researcher joining us today, I encourage you to use this forum to learn how important research questions are formulated. Good research in regional science often begin with simple but powerful questions. Who benefits from development? Who is left behind? And what can policy do to make development more inclusive? Finally, I would like to once again thank the Vice Rector and the Dean Faculty of Economic and at Universitas Andalas, the organizing committee, the speaker, the moderator, and all participants.
Presentation will be led by our moderator, Ms. Rati Ramadhani, FSA. May I invite Ms. Rati Ramadhani, FSA, to lead the presentation. Please give the big applause. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Our distinguished speakers, Professor Budy, Professor Arief, Professor Werry, and the Honorable President of IRSA, who joined virtually by Zoom, and distinguished Vice Rector and Dean and Head of Department of Economics, Faculty Economics and Business, Universitas Andalas. It's my pleasure to be as moderator session. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's now my goal to invite speaker for this session, Professor Arief Anshory Yusuf, to the stage. Please give a applause for Professor to come to the stage with me. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, I want to welcome and for those who joining virtually by Zoom, please confirm that my voice is clear enough. And if you can hear me well, kindly type yes in the chat box. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce our distinguished speakers, Professor Arief Anshory Yusuf is a professor of economics at Department of Economics, Faculty Economics and Business in Universitas Padjadjaran. Yes, Prof. He currently serves as member of National Economic Council of the Republic of Indonesia, and Professor Arief also holds several international academic appointments, including visiting professor at King College London, honorary senior lecturer at Australian National University, and non-resident senior. Yes, well. Yes, for more than 70 years, the Kuznets Curve has been one of the most influential concepts in development economics, describing how income inequality changes during the process of economic developments. But in today's sessions, Professor Arief revisits this classic theory by exploring the role of education in structural transformations, drawing a
Thank you. More than nice. Thank you. Introduction. Go straight to the materials. Can you please the next slide? Okay. Well, I just stumbled upon this article in 1975 by late Professor Hendra Esmara. He mentioned specifically that at that time, 1975, the data already available for us to explore about the concept, not necessarily disparity between regions, but disparity within regions. This talk will be based on two papers, both of them published in a special issues celebrating Kuznets 70 years. Kuznets article in 1955 has been 70 years in 2025, and this journal has a special issue on commemorating that legacies. So we have two papers in that special issue, one of them written with me, with Professor Peter War, and the other one with other colleague from Padjadjaran and King's College. Next. 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 Yeah. So first, maybe we should revisit what exactly Kuznets says about the curve. Many of us know that the inverted U curve, that inequality rise during development beginning at the stage, and then suddenly, and then eventually will move down, yeah, later on the stage of other development. That was so popular. But when we read again carefully what exactly Kuznets said, he didn't really say that. He didn't really say he hypothesized there could be something like that, but at that time the data was not enough to confirm. And then the term Kuznets curve has especially popularized not by himself but some other writers, and it has been strongly labeled as something very strong hypothesis or predictions. Sudrum call it law, the iron law of development, and then the others say Kuznets law. So it's something you call something a law, like law of demand. This is something typically is cannot be proven otherwise, right? But in fact, when Peter, for example, look at the data and the literature, he said that, well, if you want to draw the curve, it's not really a U, inverted U is just a spoon. Yeah, this is what we call Kuznets process. The Kuznets process, well, it's also not originally within inequality, within income distribution and between distributions. One of them, the within one, you can see here, factors, factor accumulation, sectoral TFP decompositions, and Engel's law. Maybe some of them already aware of those things, which we also discussed for Thailand, but education is rarely discussed. So that's why maybe education angle will be one of the things that we can contribute to the discussion, especially in commemorating the Kuznets curve in 70 years. So yeah, so education will serve will serve as a channel with a slightly different way. So so it may facilitate a structural transformation, of course, by improving the skills so they can have a chance more to work in modern or non-traditional sectors. But it might simultaneously resave within sector wages. Yeah. So it may create inequality. Next. Next, please. So when we move populations because of education, so education may facilitate expansions by moving from A to B, right? Okay, so at the moment, as the data that I will show you after this slide. So the idea of mobility is not really consistent with some data of differential productivity between sectors. So if you have a perfect mobility, eventually productivity will be at least matched, not too much different, but actually productivity between sector still have a wide gap. So there is some kind of labor market frictions at the moment in many developing countries. So if we educate more people, can we facilitate this to move from A to B? So it means share of population working in agriculture sector will be bigger. But if you look at this curve, next, there's a chance that this will actually a shifting of the curve in both within sector curve or within sector curve. Then will create another tensions between transformation and inequality. Next. Yeah, so this is what I talked to you about. So the gap, this is the gap. This is the ratio between value added of worker in non-agriculture and agriculture, right? This is from other papers. But you can see that the gap persists above 1. So the gap persists, especially in median country, because it still stick to even 4.3 times in non-agricultures. And then if you see here, there is a correlation between year school in agriculture. So it's never been along the 45-degree line. So it means education between sector is also inequal. Next. Okay, next. So about this education role in structural transformation, of course, we are not the first people to talk about this, but there are several previous literature that discuss this. For example, this guy said that with the evidence from the US that indeed education drive labor from low productivity agriculture to high productivity agriculture. Asemoglu mentions about the skill bias sectoral difference. And then this guy, Porzio et al. Actually say that human capital growth accounts for 40% of declining agricultural employment. So indeed, education, according to literature, may facilitate structural transformation. But what is missing is causal evidence. So Esther Duflo actually in 2001, this is the paper that many people talk about when he got the Nobel Prize, but this is not the Nobel Prize paper that, this is not the reason he got the Nobel Prize, but this is one of the paper that people talk about, the Indonesian case. He has a causal evidence on education and labor market outcome with natural experiment. You can read the papers. But the most recent one is this paper that using OECD country that specifically answer almost exactly the same as question. We say that education, because it has related to inequality, but this paper is not really related to inequality, but this paper related to inequality. So he said that education may increase the inequality in the long run, despite its facilitate structural transformation. So this is what the literature. So the gap is limited causal evidence and the inequality channel. So that's the gap in the literature. So that's what we try to address in this papers. Next. So we have specifically two research questions. First is, does education expansions make a worker more likely to move from the traditional sector to the modern sector? That's the first question. The second question is, okay, this is more causal question. This is not necessarily. So to what extent does education expansion drive or contribute to inequality, particularly through systematically higher inequality within modern sector? So we use several different methods. The first one, we are using fuzzy RDD, reduced discontinuity design, using Indonesia 9. This is quite popular method. We borrow it from people who already use it, but using on different application. So using Indonesia 1978, 1978 full year extension as natural experiment. The data is Indonesian IRS. The second question, you may already know that there are Atkinson inequality decompositions. Just to see is within or between sector, inequality is more profound. But the other one, I think, is rather a new method. So I also want to introduce to many of your students, especially that has not really used this. I really encourage you to use this. This is called RIF, Reference Influence Function Regression. This is a current method. This is recently developed by guys in the US. That I think is very powerful. Okay, so I encourage you guys to study this. Thanks. Next. Yeah, so this is the method first. The method is in 1978, 1979. You know, at the time Pak Daud Yusuf kalau nggak salah ya, lupa saya, ministernya itu tiba-tiba suddenly he said that academic calendar move from January to July. So that's kind of random experiment because the time when you were born is random. So that's random. So suddenly, some of us randomly selected to have 6 months more education. That's a randomly selected. So that's kind of the identification strategy. Oh, random. So it's like RCT. It's natural experiment. So we use that and then use that with IRSA data to have a fuzzy RDD. Fuzzy RDD is basically a two-stage. Fuzzy can mean good or mean bad. Some certain people mean fuzzy unclear, but it's not really RDD, but fuzzy RDD. So fuzzy RDD, we have to stage. First, we have to identify whether or not you have discontinuity. Then the second stage, after you removing all this non-random things, see that, then use the residual random component of the education into probit. In this case is instrumental variable probit, IV probit irritations. So this is showing where the discontinuity seems to be handling the randomness of the natural experiments. Next. Here's the result. Okay, so the result is the second stage one is this one. So first, research has always been trial and error. So I always say that if you want to do research, use minimum amount of RA. because you have to, because I don't really like the PhD student saying that, I can do this by asking someone else to do it. I think even coding and things like this, you have to do it yourself. Because research, sometimes the moment of finding is when you try and error. If you let RA through the trial and error, that you may miss the opportunity to have a good finding. So I suggest use as minimum as possible RA to do your research, even though you are doing coding. So when I did trial and error at first, I said, let's try agriculture to non-agriculture. Didn't find anything. The first stage, okay, but the second stage couldn't find anything. Why I tried urban rural? I find significant. So it means education facilitate what is it called? Territorial mobility between rural and urban, but it's not necessarily sector. But when I use different definitions of the modern sectors, let's say formal, I start to find, for example, if you only use non-agriculture low productivity sector, you will not find anything. But when you try to limit the definitions of non-agricultural sector, let's say high productivity agriculture sector versus formal, then you start seeing that, well, it may. Well, it's just one star, but it may. So, well, so the finding is rural urban has strong significant effect to facilitate agriculture non-agricultural, no effect. Agriculture formal positive despite marginally significant, but if you insist in agriculture to informal, it's not necessary. And this has relevance in the context of Indonesia today, because now what we're seeing is very low productivity structural transformations, because people move from rural area to cities and work in the sector of low productivity. Next. How many time do I have left, Miss Moderator?
Yes, you still have time.
Still have time?
Yeah.
1 hour?
No, about 20 minutes.
Okay, so now the second question is about what? Well, I always say this several times that to even policymakers, because when Pak Jokowi was in power, one of his most flagship policy is infrastructures. Build road anywhere, even there is no people. That's Jokowi's policy. And I criticize that. Why criticize that? Because I don't like the logics. Because the logic said by building those infrastructure, it will reduce inequality. I said, no. You may reduce between region inequality. But since 95% or 90%, if only 4% of inequality in Indonesia is contributed by between region inequality, there's no way that building road to the frontier where even no one live there will reduce inequality. So inequality exists everywhere in all regions, and that's what we have to do. But with region, okay, but you have to change the logic, because I like your policy, but I don't like your logic. So you have to revise your logic if you want to. So this is one of the thing from the paper. We say that, well, so if there is, so it means that if there is a situation where education may affect inequality, if that force is strong, it should be affect through within region or within sector inequality. So this is within sector, not within region. Yeah? Sorry, but the same for within region too. Yeah? So this is Atkinson only. Next. Next, please. Next, yeah. Okay, the next question is, to what extent education increase inequality? So let me spend maybe 5 to 7 minutes to discuss this method. So some of students can bring it home. So consider the normal regressions. This is standard regression. Okay, this is wage, this is education. If your question is, what is the effect of educations on wage? When we say that, this beta one actually estimate the effect of education on mean wage. Wage. So if this beta is 0.5 between every 1 year of education, you increase the mean of the wage by 0.5. Okay, that's normal. But what if the question is rather different? What if the question is, what is the effect of education on inequality of wage? Okay, normally those research questions can only be handled not with individual level data. You only handle it with group data. Let's say district data, right? The higher education in one district, the equality of income in that district, for example, will increase. But what if I don't want to use district data? What if I want to still use individual level data? Can we answer that? It seems impossible. right? See, how can you do that? You have individual level data, but you're answering a question, what effect of wage, of education on inequality of wage? There's no way you can use individual data. Not anymore. Okay, we can answer that with a new method called Reef regression. Okay, next. Okay, so the idea is not that rocket science. Actually, Reef regression was based on another calculus of derivative. But in our calculus that we learn at school is one way. So you want to change to the front, right? Not to the back. But what we call Gotthold derivative is it's a calculus of increase and decrease, etc. What if we change not necessarily to the front but to the back? It's a bit rather different philosophy, right? It's not Newtonian. It's something else. So basically, what we do is, what if we have these distributions, okay, and we perturb the distribution a little bit, such a tiny thing, and how will it affect the? So if let's say we take 10% of the data or something like that, disturb, right? And then see how it's distributed, and then calculate the whole distributions, let's say standard deviations or the Gini coefficient, you can calculate after that. This is when you change even little. This is 0.10, this is 0.05 perturbations. What if this theta is close to 0? That's what we call influence function. Influence function. So influence function is, what if we perturb the distribution very tiny and look at the whole distribution, what will it affect the distributions? Okay, it's called influence function. So we can derive influence functions for various things, various statistics of distribution. You can derive the EF for mean, EF for Gini, EF for variance, EF for whatever. But EF is individual level because we can disturb anywhere. If you disturb anywhere, why don't we disturb people, rich people? What if we disturb poor people? What if we disturb median people? So each observation has a contributions to the perturbation. Yeah, next. Then this is example. Maybe this one, just example. This is the contamination. So if you see here, if we perturb 0.05, very small, not 0, then the delta mean this one, but the delta file here, if you contamination at higher level, the change, this is reducing inequality, this is increasing inequality. So every observation has different contribution to inequality of the overall distribution. Right? Okay, next. Well, you don't really need to derive yourself the influence functions. Many people already did that, but recently. So if you want, yes, you can, but people already did do it. And then next. Okay. Because we are not using influence function, sorry. So what R means? So recenter means, it's just very simple. So if you are using IF here, not RIF, then the mean of IF is 0. So we couldn't say what is the effect of increasing educations on the mean of the Gini, because the Gini will be 0. Okay? But the smart idea of this guy is, why don't we add the Gini there, the F, for every distributions. So this is for all. It's constant. It's added constant. Gini. If this is then we call this recenter influence function. But the effect is amazing because now we can interpret what will be the effect of whatever here, let's say education, on the on the Gini coefficient for every distribution. Next. So this is an example. This is the example of the Reef functions. Yeah. For Gini, for example, this is the one, but the very simple one. This is for the one we use is the Gini coefficient. Next. Next. This is the example of reference influence function of several statistics. For example, this is the Gini coefficient. This is the Gini coefficient. So it actually the effect of wage on Gini coefficient is not constant. It depends on where you are. It depends on where you are, but never zero, zero. Okay, next. This is the example. This is the example. This is not from the research. This is just a demonstration. See this one? Yeah. This one is standard regression. You regress wage, let's say on wage or wage, on education. Let's focus on tertiary education. Yeah. What does it mean? It means that if you have higher education, your wage will rise. So it's good for you. Higher education good for you, right? Individually, because it will increase the chance of you naik status sosial, yeah? Mobility. You will have increases. But when you see this one, it's positive too, right? Well, if you have secondary education, this is different. Secondary education increase your mobility too, right? Because increase your wage, reduce inequality. But if you are sarjana, bachelor, you increase your mobility, but you have negative impact on the distributions. So this is what we can answer from the regressions. Using the same data, using the same observation. Okay, so I encourage you, because the application of this can be in many areas. Using individual level data to answer this, to tackle distribution questions. Okay, now let's coming back to our research questions. So by having this, next, then we can calculate, next, what is called Oaxaca-Blinder decomposition. With Oaxaca-Blinder decomposition is, if you have two regressions, let's say urban, rural, or agriculture on agriculture, this is standard one, and then taking the expectation, and then creating a difference, then we can decompose the difference into two components. First, the composition structures and the structures component. Composition structure means the difference, let's say in wage between urban and rural, simply because there are many more educated labor in rural urban areas. But that's not the only explanation. The other explanation is you may not necessarily have higher education, but you move from rural area to urban area and having higher wage. Okay, so that's a different, right? So the gap between urban and rural area can be because in urban area there are many people are educated, but also can be because people with the same education have higher wage. That's structure effect. It's 1970 tools. Many people use it for explanations of earning gap between women and men, yeah, between sector and so on. But with Reef regressions, we can do more. Now we can ask the questions, the difference in inequality between group, is it because composition effect or is it because structural effect? So it's a similar answer, but it's a totally different angle. Okay. So next, Now, if you use Reef regression instead of normal regression, then the question is the delta y can be the Gini coefficient. So next, last. No, this is before. 9 plus. Okay, and this is the complete Reef Oaxaca blizzard decompositions, but the one that is important is just the component of the pure composition effect and pure structure effect. These two actually is the imperfections of the decomposition because the decomposition is not perfect. So this is the composition effect gave due to difference in X. So, but we comparing to second moment. We comparing to inequality. Yeah, inequality in one sector with inequality in such decomposition effect, and then this is the structure effect. So it means, and then also we can estimate or not estimate, identify the detailed decomposition. Detailed decomposition means not necessarily composition structure, but what factor or what variable in that composition, because we use many variables, right? Okay, next. This is the result. Okay. So this is the result, the Reef Oaxaca blinder decomposition of Gini coefficients. As you can see here that non-agriculture, yeah, is much unequal compared to agriculture. There are difference of 0.0.5 if we use the data of 2014, right? And then this contribute by endowment component, not structures, because the structure is not significant. But the endowment component is so 35 dari 50 perbedaannya ini, ya. 35 over 50 is explained by endowment component. So not structure. Or especially our focus of attention is the agriculture to formal agriculture, which is this one. So it can be even higher. So what is the key finding of this? Non-agriculture has consistently higher Gini, okay? That's from the data. But the gap is almost entirely explained by composition effect, not structure effect. And among those explained component, education is actually the single largest driver of inequality. Because I put many other factors. I didn't show here, but you can see from the paper. I put many factors. Those factors is nothing compared to the effect of education. So, or if I have to mention, region also have, but cannot compare to this. So, explain 53% of the composition gap in 2014 and 2% in 2007. Okay, so education. So, but what is the implication of this? What is the interpretations? So the interpretation is education drives the Gini gap between higher productivity sector, modern and agriculture sector, but because the significant contribution is coming from the composition effect, so it is interpreted that the more educated worker sort into higher distortions of modern sectors. So simply because there are so many more educated workers in modern sector, that what drive the not because the earning structure of the wage scale. Okay, so that's what we found. Maybe last. Let's talk about policy. Okay, first, what we find. Oh, well, this is the history. So the inverted U of Kuznets is misremembering. Yeah. So inequality is it's more interesting, not necessarily to misappropriately predict Kuznets or maybe Kuznets doesn't want to be associated with the curve because it's not what he meant, but let's be more interested in the process of what Kuznets proposed, that inequality is driven by structural transformation and many other things. And what we find is two. First, indeed, that education move workers out of agriculture, but we have to very narrowly define what we mean by modern service. Yeah? If we just simply, oh, services, no, not necessarily. Yeah? If we still simply, oh, manufacturing can be UMKM, maybe it's not really a Kuznets things. Okay? So we have to be very narrow and specific, but about what we meant by modern. Yeah. So, and it should be at least formal modern employment that we can say that education can facilitate structural transformation. So that's the finding. The second finding is that education explains the higher modern sector Gini. So modern sector Gini is higher than traditional, and then education play a big part. Yeah, but it's via composition effect, not difference in return. It means education expand, creating more people with educated skills, and create inequality. So what is the policy implication? Well, it's something food for thought for people, especially in our sector, higher education. Yeah, yeah, because well, we have to be proud. Well, growth ambitions should be structural transformation driven, and we demonstrate that education expansion is the legitimate lever for 8% growth, maybe, yeah, 8% growth. So education expansion can facilitate structural transformation and can contribute to our ambitions of higher growth. But if we talk about inclusivity, okay, this paper say that is education policy that aim to expand education toward more mass is not necessarily an egalitarian instrument. Yeah. So it may widen inequality as the economy transform. But so it means from the policy perspective, use education as lever for structural transformation. But if you still want to have inclusive growth, if you want to have egalitarian goal, don't use education as a vehicle. Use other things. For example, transfer, income redistribution in many other forms. We have many options, right? So that might close my presentation. 1 minute, I have extra. Anyway, thanks again for the attention and look forward to your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Arief, for your insightful and inspiring presentations. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today lectures has provided us with many valuable perspective and certainly given us much to think about. So I would like to invite participants to deliver or maybe share any question. Okay, please, Pak Udan. Microphone, please.
So, I would like to ask specific education. Relationship between education, especially education and equality. So, for education, is the impact of education to inequality. Secondary education and higher education. So from the result, it shows that in school, Also, the justification for subsidy, subsidy it is also justify in terms of it's also justify it's
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. I like controversy. That's how we are here, right? Well, half jokingly, I will answer first half jokingly. But our president ambition is growth, 8% growth. So education can be a lever for structural transformation and will increase growth. So you'll be fine, don't worry. But of course, you have to see that our president also care about distribution, I think, yeah. So then we have issues. Well, first of all, this is also puzzling a bit, yeah. But Akita in 10 years ago or 5 years ago actually asked the same questions using other kind of method, and the result is the same. Education expansion, increase inequality, particularly in urban areas. But I think it's, to me, it is not that unexpected, the effect, yeah, because the chance, it also happened simply because education itself may be not at the level where the opportunity is massive. So it's still elitist. Why still elitist? Because the data say the chance of you to get into higher education, if you are top 20%, is I think maybe 10 or 10 times, if I'm not mistaken, with the chance of you if you are bottom 20%. Some people disagree with me, say that, look, the beca driver daughter, right, can get into university and now becoming a professor at Birmingham universities, right? It means that education, higher education has been for all. But I always said to them, no. The story of that beca driver's daughter to get into university is viral in the media. So if such story is viral, it means it's not common. It means it's not common. If we don't hear that story anymore, then we're fine. But if such story is still viral, so I think the high inequality effect of inequality of education, I think is still quite natural in this country. But of course, that's not the reason why we should reduce subsidy. Because first, again, there's the lever of growth. You can have higher growth, higher productivity. That's what we're lacking for the last 2 decades, total productivity-driven growth. So higher growth can be achieved by more people with having higher education. That's true. My paper said that. Okay, it's a lever of structural transformations. Okay, so and also we cannot redistribute something if we don't have growth. Right? Okay, And also the role of education is not necessarily, that's why I say that it doesn't need to be an egalitarian policy. It's a pro-growth policy, pro-expansion policy, and also play a role in other areas, research, right? Research in other areas still need to be subsidized, but not necessarily subsidized because of the distribution reasons. So don't worry. I think it's not will be used again reducing subsidy. Well, in fact, you are reducing subsidy right now.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, but that's not the reason because they're in my paper. Okay.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Prof. Can we proceed to next questions? Is participants, you can contribute or give your questions related to the presentation. And participants in Zoom also can give a question by type the question in the chat box, and I will read the questions to the professor. Well, Professor, in your opinions, is the main challenge in Indonesia today is expanding access to educations or improving the quality of education or maybe creating the sufficient formal employment opportunities for a more educated workforce?
It's a very relevant question today. But it may be the case that it's fairly a rather recent phenomenon, because back then in our era, in Pak Udan's era, if you have sarjana, it's not that difficult to find good job. But more recently, especially after COVID, something happened. I think suddenly not that easy anymore. Not that easy anymore. We have stories of a graduate of university becoming satpam and things like that, ojek drivers. So it is sign that it's not really a good sign. And for some reason, after COVID, we can see stagnations in the job creations of higher wage formalities. And the reason is unclear until now, but there is what is called scarring effect of the COVID. And I think my theory is there are multi aspects that happens at almost the same time. Yeah. First, COVID suddenly, I mean, Indonesia has been struggling in creating informal jobs, but people cannot adjust. Company cannot really adjust because of strict labor regulation. They have to pay severance payment that's too high and things like that. And suddenly COVID allowed them to lay off. It's good. So they lay off. So there's an opportunity to lay off. Okay, there are more people now lay off because of COVID, haven't returned to their jobs. That's first. Second, COVID introduced us to technology that we never even thought. We can use robot, we can use Zoom, we can use this and that. So companies, many companies also offing people, or not only in Indonesia, in many other countries, because of the, and then so this happened almost at the same time. And of course, there are many other things, for example, global condition, migration stagnant because of the many political situation in developed countries. So this apparently happened almost at the same time. So my theory is it is something of multiple aspects. And that's true. That's the biggest challenge. My answer is that's the biggest challenge to create formal job of Indonesian young generation. But I don't have the answer of how, because it's mystery to almost everybody. So we have to, for us in the academy, before suggesting what solution, I think we need to study first what's the cause. And the answer to what cause is still a mystery. So I think for people here, colleague, I think the question of what happened after COVID, this scarring effect, has not been answered quite well. So if you have dissertations or thesis, I think that could be a good one.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for your explanations. Okay, please, participants for next questions. Maybe from Pak Kadep, yes. Silakan, Pak.
Yeah, just to trigger more questions. Okay, thank you very much. It's very interesting lecture. But Prof. Arief, now a tendency that today we are in the era of people call it premature industrialization and also de-agriculturalization as well, right? Yeah, demonization. And especially in West Sumatra, that also happened. Now, but we also witness that today commodity prices become better or increasing, for example. So then people now, Ibu Wade also said, higher educated people already come to the village because the price of coffee, for instance, right, and there are many cafes. Now, how would education in the future, will education, maintain higher inequality probably, or it may help to reduce inequality? Because if you say, go to the university, which is say coffee related study program, and then you go back as an entrepreneur, that will increase the wage of farmer compared to the in industrial sector, right? So will it happen that education will make inequality better? Thank you very much.
To the last question, I think never realize, never execute, never implement any policy simply relying on one paper, of course. Even simply relying without paper. Okay, dan saya nyindir-nyindir sedikit. Okay, yeah. So, of course, people still open, I'm still open that may happen. It's good that you raise the issue of deurbanization, because I have another paper too with Peter War about deurbanizations that may happen in Indonesia or in certain other country, in India especially. But I can see two opposite phenomena in terms of the good or bad. What we should avoid is that phenomenon happen because people try to find opportunity in urban area but couldn't find, so they return. I think that's not a good sign. But I can still see good sign. But in one conditions, it's driven by technology. It happens in many other countries. In other countries, in developed country, people, I can Zoom, I can have a digital nomad. Yeah, I can use my brain and work in close to my hometown. But I can still do Zoom. Maybe in 10 years or 5 years later, we can even not Zoom, like real time, like your body seems to be there. I think it's not impossible in the next 10 years. So it means location is not really a constraint of how people can generate income. And I start seeing that a little happen in Indonesia. Like, for example, me personally, I bought a house in my village, 5,000 meter with only one very little money because it's very remote. But before I decided to buy, I asked, is there any IndiHome there? Okay. And then I happened to have IndiHome. Okay, I just bought the house. And at that time, I spent maybe 15 days of every month there working. And I can see many other people start looking into it. So if that's what happened, right? This brain gain from urban area to rural area is a positive sign. And with this increasing technology, AI and things like that, why don't we open for such possibility and study that and try and if can help Indonesian economy to be more egalitarian, or to be more both in terms of the geography and of its social structure. So why don't we start doing this, thinking about how to do it effectively, and campus can also facilitate that kind of process.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Okay, I would like to help participants who give questions virtually in Zoom. It's from Pratita Utami. I'm interested in the influence of the wage curve in the fisheries sector. It seems that specifically in the capture fisheries sector, education increase are not directly proportional to labor assumptions and wages. It's true that on the one hand, there are regulations regarding skills certification for workers, ABK kapal, but in my opinion, these government's regulations are meant to select who can access open access resources. In this case, what other variables besides education can replace it? I ask because its proportion is equal to education. If I have the opportunity, I will be happy to duplicate the calculations in these fisheries sectors, Professor. And once more, Professor, it's related with your answer before from Asi Halomon. Does your finding imply the education primarily affects to composition of workers entering high-skill formal jobs rather than accelerating structural transformation in general? It seems that AI will replace lower quality jobs rather than high quality jobs. I wonder if this will create more inequality in the future.
Because my memory is limited, let me answer the last one first. So the last one, can AI exacerbate or make things worse in terms of the inequality effect of education? I think I'm not really certain, yeah. But the fact that now AI can replace not only manual job or manual task, but also abstract tasks. Yeah. I think this may affect of reducing inequality in not in a good way. So it means people with high skill that normally earn income from what we think cannot be replaced by AI, they are high income. Like for example, programmer, the cloud person who create cloud code say that coding problem is over. So we don't need coders anymore. And in Bandung, I talked to several people who are in the industry, say that many coders who graduate from university couldn't find job because of cloud code. So it means if they have jobs, they will be a high income segment, right? So if they don't have job, inequality will fall, maybe, but not in a good way, right? Because everybody is becoming poor, and the rich will be someone in Anthropic who get our dollar coming to the Anthropic company in the US. Right? But of course, this is open for discussion. But AI has a potential to make things worse. That's my question. I answer to the second question. The last one is about fisheries. I'm not really an expert on fisheries, but this is my casual answer. If you have higher education, people tend to leave fisheries. So at the moment, yeah, the effect of you having higher education, maybe the motivations is not to work in the fisheries sector. That's motivation is to leave fisheries. So that's why the effect of education on fisheries sector is not necessarily good. So, but to me, is it good or is it bad? Well, to me, that's a structural transformation because fishery is a primary sector that has perhaps low productivity simply because too many people back there because of open access and so on. So if people leave fisheries, they try to find other better jobs. That's good for the economy, and fishery will have less people there, but if more competitions, that will increase more stocks, right? Increase more productivity, less player. for example. So I see still this in a positive way. Maybe the lady in a rather different way, but it's okay to disagree, right? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for the explanation. Okay, today lectures remind us that education is a key driver of structural transformations, but however, education itself is not sufficient to reduce the inequality. Yeah, so to achieve inclusive developments and educational expansion must be accompanied by supportive labor market or maybe economics policies. So thank you, Professor Arief, for the inspiring lecture. I give applause for the presenter. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we close today's sessions, it's my honor to present a token of appreciation to Professor Arief Anshory Yusuf on behalf of the Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Andalas. Okay, please committee. Where is the placard? Okay. Yes. Okay, I think that's all the session, the first session today, and I would like give back to the MC for the next session. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Rati Ramadhani, MSA, for leading the first session. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to the next part of the main session, which will be led by Ms. Rahmi Abzi Wefilananda, MSA. May I invite Ms. Rahmi Abzi, MSA, to lead the session. And please give the big applause.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome to the second session of the Hendra Esmara Lecture 2026. My name is Rahmi Abziyafilananda as your moderator for this session. First, all praise to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for His mercy and blessing. And also I want to welcome our guest, our speaker, and also our participant in online and also in offline. Okay, before we go to the next session, I want to make sure for the participant in online, is it okay? Is the audio is clear for you or not? Please make sure or please say to us if you have any problem in the Zoom meeting. Okay, and also this session will be held for around 90 minutes. 30 minutes for each speaker, and the last 30 minutes will be discussion session between participants and also speakers. Now, I would like to invite our speakers for this session, Professor Budy Resosudarmo. Professor, please come into the stage. And also Professor Werry, okay? Professor Werry will come to the stage later. It's my distinct honor to introduce our first speaker, Bapak Professor Budy Resosudarmo, who served as the professor in the Crawford School of Public Policy, the Australian National University, and the head of the Australian National University Indonesia project. He holds an impressive academic background with bachelor degree from ITB, a master degree from University of Delaware, and PhD in development economics from Cornell University. Okay, Professor Werry, please come into the stage. Professor Budy is also a fellow of Regional Science Association International, a member of Advisory Committee of the Indonesian Regional Science Association, or IRSA, a member of the Advisory Committee of the Economy and Environment Institute Indonesia, and an ex-officio member of the Council of the Pacific Regional Science Conference organizer. His expertise covers a broad spectrum of the economics, including development, regional, environmental, and agricultural economics, focusing on poverty, inequality, and statistical modeling. Okay, today, Professor Budy will talk about natural resource course at the local level in Indonesia. For the Professor Budy, the floor is yours.
Oh, okay. Should I use this one or this one?
Both of them.
Oh, both. Okay. Please, my slide. So the topic, first of all, I would like to thank Faculty of Economics at Andalas University for your willingness to collaborate with us. I also would like to thank IRSA, and I would like also to thank the Andalas University as a whole that has been willing to organize this series of lectures, which right now becoming one of the prominent lectures in Indonesia and on the topic of regional development. And for this opportunity, I would like to discuss the possibility whether there is a natural resource curse at a local level. So before that, please allow me just to say 5 minutes about the institution that I work for. Next. So the next, yeah. So I personally belong to this department, the uncordoned department of economics, and Arief is one of our products. We organize a master and PhD degree, and our specialization is on Asia Pacific economy. So there are about 20, 30 faculty members with about 150 students. Next. And within Uncordon, I'm part of a research center, but the research center is actually have members from other departments as well, political science, demography. There are about 15 faculty members with various backgrounds. And we have been around for 61 years in July. So we have been a while. Next. Next. Halo, next. Yang pegang komputer jangan ganti-ganti. Yeah. All right. So the project conduct activities such as research. So we have PhD student, about 15 PhD student with us. We have a visiting program for young faculty member, as well as we have executive training for a certain activities or a certain module. And we conduct various dissemination activities, including one of it is Hendra Esmara. Although our main flag activities are two, every year we conduct Indonesia Update Conference in September. It is probably the biggest conference on Indonesia outside Indonesia. And we publish a journal that we call it Bulletin of Indonesian Economic Studies. Next. So from the conference, every year we produce a book. So if we have conference last year, then we produced the book this year. These are the book that is from 2024 update. And so the book comes in 2025. It's about Jokowi presidency. But before that, we talk about urban Indonesia, we talk about gender, we talk about health. So every year the topic different. In 2025, we talk about climate change. So Then the book that will come at the end of the year will be on climate change. And this year we talk about Indonesia, Islam diversifikasi in Islam Indonesia. So we talk about how diverse Islam in Indonesia. Next year we will talk about the new Indonesia. And next, the second activities are the bulletin. It has been published since 1965. You are all welcome trying to submit to this bulletin. The performance in this bulletin is not that bad. Yeah. So the impact factor is 2.3 and it's belong to Q1 in development and area studies. And Pak Arief is one of the editorial board, so you can approach him and ask him how to produce in this journal. Although I have to mention that don't be disappointed if the first submission be rejected, because the rejection rate right now is a bit more than 85%. So, but just keep pushing. All right, that is about my background. Now I would like to talk about the topic next. So why I would like to talk about natural resource curves at local level? Because in this topic has been debated for a long time, yeah? Whether actually natural resource is blessing or not. Because it has been for a long time also the importance of natural resource in development has been recognized. And it will always be plus positive and negative. Yeah, this is the debate in 1970s. Yeah, some people say that this is positive, particularly because the industry is actually pushing the whole economy to growth. But since early on already have a negative view. So this is by Davis and Singer. That has that primary based economy typically less competitive, producing less competitive human resources. And probably the most famous argument is by Sack and Warner that produced the natural resource curse. Basically what he did is that he do regression across country and showing that countries with abundant natural resources typically develop less compared to those do not have much natural resources. Yeah. So then some in political science say this is paradox of plenty. You have rich resources, but development has been problematic. And in the literature, basically, there are three main channels of this natural resource curse. The number one is this, what is called Dutch disease. Because you are rich in natural resources, you actually ignore the other sector. And when there is a shock in natural resources, such as price going down, your other sector is not ready to compete. So then you were actually trapped. So that is number one channel. The number two channel is through conflict in area in which a lot of natural resources, typically there is a conflict. Yeah. Particularly if you allow illegal extraction of natural resources. Because of the conflict, the economy cannot actually grow up. Yeah. And the third is particularly the argument of political scientists is that in area in which natural resource is rich, corruption is high. So institution is weak. Yeah. And so the weak institution making the economy actually cannot be stimulated. Yeah. So there are three main channels in literature. There are others, but there are the three. Now the debate continue, and next, however, in recent development, the debate is more on particularly natural resources, because the argument is that each natural resources can have different character. And second is that the analysis is not within a country, between country, but within country. So di dalam sebuah negara, within country. And so the literature has been shaped to look at within country. So this is also we're trying to give a contribution on the empirical aspect, whether there is within country research course or not. Next. In the Indonesia context, we all know that oil and gas, particularly now coal, but oil and gas has been important. Yeah, there are several studies on that. And next, and I can just show you a very simple diagram. You could see that in 1970s, 80s, oil and gas is more than 60% of government revenue. So that's how important. The percentage declined, but still important. However, for the case of Indonesia, the technocrat has been able to use the revenue from oil and gas and conduct various programs that we used to call it INPRES, yeah, in agriculture, on irrigation, in infrastructure, and on education. We know that there is the INPRES. And if we look at the Indonesian case, next, Indonesia as a country do not have a natural resource curse. Because if you look at, this is the GDP level in US dollar, Indonesia since early 1970s until 2000 something. The black one, Indonesia performs better than many other countries, including China. So for Indonesia, the argument that we have a natural resource curse as a nation is not there. As a nation, but that is until 2000, yeah, until year 2000. So from the 70s until 2000, in which we have this boom of income, due to the ability to use the revenue for irrigation, infrastructure, and education, our performance is actually better than Thailand, even within China during that period. Now, however, the question is that whether there is a local natural resource curse. So my current study is actually looking at both district and village. So the one that I'm going to show is the argument whether there is a natural resource curse at a village level. Next. So what I'm going to present is at a village level, and just looking at the specific extraction, which is oil extraction, yeah, at a village level. The argument is that whether a village who actually got a mining, an oil mining activities, receiving a curse or a bless at a village level. Yeah. So we're trying to do a causal inference over here. Next. So the objective is provide an empirical evidence of the causal impact of extraction of oil mining on local economy at village level in Indonesia. And also we're going to see the heterogeneity, and if we could see the channel, we would like to argue the channel. Next. So the identification strategy over here is that we have data of oil mining at sumber level, at sumber level, yeah, throughout Indonesia, yeah, and we know that that field in what village, Yeah. So what we're going to use is all village in which there is an identification, which is this is an exploration that there is a possible oil within that village. So throughout Indonesia, not all village has been identified that there is a possibility of oil. So the way that we explore oil is that when we do exploration and then identify there is an oil, and then we trying to do another a deeper exploration and decided whether we produce or not. Yeah. So what we use in the sample is all that has been explored that this village has an oil. However, the one that we use as a treatment is the village that actually able to produce the oil. Yeah. So we're trying to compare apple to apple. Yeah. All has potential, but one is actually producing and one is not. Yeah. Next. So these are the diagram of the identification. So we collect all village. Yeah. And this is based on exploration. Yeah. And then after that, typically a company will do a more extensive exploration and then actually identify, oh yes, there is real oil, which is basically producible, and no, there isn't producible. Within those that actually producible, some is actually able to produce and some is not. And we argue that this process is random. Yeah. So the way that we use causal inference is that on the right-hand side, whether somebody is actually producing or not is a random process. So this is in literature, we call it natural experiment, because naturally, the one that actually produce and the one that actually not is determined by nature. Yeah. So that is the exogeneity come from. Yeah. Because all of the village are actually potentially producing because they have been identified. Yeah. So next, so with this strategy, we actually look at all. These are example of data that we have. A card in Ministry of Finance about each of the sumur. Yeah, this is, for example, the name of the sumur and the location of the sumur, the location of the. And so we have since 1950 something until so the quite a lot about at the end is about 1,000 something village that has been identified has a possibility to produce oil. Next. So these are the data of the location that we use. There are 1,200 villages, yeah, that has been identified. Actually, there is a possibility oil beneath that village. And actually, the one that actually produced among those is only 106. So the treatment is this 106, yeah, and the control is the rest. But if you could see that the area are very close by between the one that produce and not, yeah, because there are all kind of possibility to produce oil. Next. So then the econometric is simple because you believe this is random, whether there is whether you actually being able to produce and not is random. So the Y is we using several outcome variable at village level. We will talk about that later. But the econometric is OLS. We control for several variable at village level, such as distance to Jakarta, topological level of altitude, and then constant indicator, and whether there's a river or not. So that basically relatively simple, and there is sub-district dummy to control for area. Next. So for robustness checks, we use several strategy. We adding up another control and check whether our coefficient is stable. We use an Oster test, which is basically a simulation to predict whether unobservable variable is more important than observable. We also use IV, yeah, that actually using a discovery as an instrument. And this discovery is for sure exclusive, yeah, because it's only affecting the outcome through production. And then there are several others robustness to check whether our result is relatively robust. Next. So, and then we conduct some extended analysis. Next. So these are the source of data. So on the outcome, use number of enterprise and number of labor village level. This is based on Indonesia Census Ekonomi 2016. And then some control is topology is using PODES, irrigation, river, and so on, and population in 2000, and then village size is using kecamatan dalam angka. So we have relatively quite intensive control, but the main argument for identification is that whether your village that has been identified having oil, being able to produce it. So that is the main argument, although we're trying to do IV as well to do some corrections. Next. Yeah, so these are the summary statistics. Yeah. The outcome variable are number of small enterprise at village and number of labor in small enterprise in the village. We don't include medium and large because the medium could identify the oil company. So then we avoid those things. And then all these control variables. So there are, as mentioned, we have about 1,200 in sample, although the treatment are relatively small. Next. So the result is as follow. They are significant, quite strong. And when your village is actually producing oil, your outcome, your enterprise, number of enterprise and number of labor in a small enterprise lower. Yeah. And this is quite significant, 51% lower. Yeah. So what does that mean? Is that at a local level, the production of oil in your village actually occurs you. The activity of small enterprise in that village is actually lower than village who potentially have oil but do not produce. Next. So the next one are all these robustness tests. We adding up irrigation, we adding up population, we adding up population density, we adding up main income, and look at the coefficient relatively stable. Yeah. So the problem of omitted variable bias is probably small. So one of the threat is omitted variable bias with a cross section. Next. Next, yeah. So these are another robustness test. Again, we add more variable and look, oh, this is the look at labor, and also the coefficient are relatively stable. Next. These are using the Oyster test. So Oyster test is basically looking at your delta, which is this one. And if your delta is bigger than 1, the argument is that all the observed variable are more important than the possible unobserved variable. Yeah. So if it is greater than 1 delta, it is actually good. Yeah. Next. Now, again, to make sure that our result is correct, we use IV. And when we look using the IV, of course, IV change the level because it is becoming a local treatment effect. Yeah. But the significance is still there. Yeah. Next. So we know that again, this is all the robustness that we run it. Because with cross-section, typically editor of a journal do not believe that we not suffer anomated variable bias. So we use all possible robustness tests to make sure that our coefficient is stable. Next. And then we do start doing heterogeneity. Yeah, which is basically looking at the training services and education sector. It turned out that services at local level and education, the one that is so the suffering or the curse is through that your village is not creative enough to produce services activities as well as related to education. Next. When we look at Unity Java, non-Java, a lot of actually the fact is outside Java. The one that suffer is those area outside Java. And also whether the area is a major producing oil. So the region as a province is actually a major producer of. Next. And we will look at the channel. One of the important channel is very difficult, yeah. So whether there is a local fund or not, yeah, to simulate the economy, particularly the local fund is by now is like a village fund, yeah. But this is specific to develop small and enterprise, and they are actually lack of that. So when your region is already producing oil, the local government also do not have much incentive to develop other activity at the village. Yeah. Next. So that is the conclusion of our studies. Indonesia might be true as a country do not suffer what is it called natural resource curse, but at a village level, there is an indication that at the local level, local who actually producing oil do not have much incentive to encourage other sector in the village, and particularly related to education, to develop. Yeah. So that could in the future affecting the local development if the oil price is suddenly go down. So that is the indication. There are several policy that need to be developed, such as, keep encouraging the local level to develop other sector than the mining in the village. Yeah. And this is a warn for the national government how to develop the region, because there is an indication that local curse is actually happening in Indonesia. Thank you.
Please give applause for Prof. Budy. It's something interesting because recently we always get the information from the government that GDP of Indonesia always increase every time, but they never talk about the household in the province and the city or in the village even. And also maybe I ever do conversation with some people in Morowali before. They have high income for the people who work in the oil or mining sector, but for the people who work in the agriculture, they lose their job, etc. But we also need to know about how the costs that people need to get from the income that Indonesia get from the hillization, right, Prof? So it's very interesting to get to know about how people will get the impact from this income of Indonesia at that time. Okay, and if you also have the question for Prof. Budy, you can keep it by yourself for now because we will continue to the next speaker, Professor Werry Darta Taifur. As we know that he is one of the professor in the Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Andalas, and also President Commissioner of PT Semen Padang. He has a rich academic foundation holding a bachelor degree from Universitas Andalas, a master degree in human resource development from Flinders University in Australia, and PhD from University Malaya. Professor Werry's extensive career is deeply rooted in high-level academic leadership, notably serving as rector of Universitas Andalas from 2011 to 2016, and a member of the Board of Trustees of Universitas Andalas 2021 until 2026. Today, Professor Werry will share about the extractive institution and the danger of decentralization. Professor Werry, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, distinguished colleagues, participants, ladies and gentlemen. First, there is 2026, and this letter is my proof that July 1985, this is the official approval of my undergraduate, and this poem designed by Professor Hendra Esmara and also Professor Saprudin, but at this time is Dr. Andus Saprudin Karimi as my co-supervisor. After graduation, I was fortunate to continue working with him as his teaching and research assistant. I also assisted him to compile the index and glossary for his book honoring Professor Sumitrojo Hadikusumo. Although Professor Hendra Esmara passed away many years ago, his intellectual legacy is very much alive. His pioneering framework for regional GDP estimation and spatial inequality analysis remain central to our work development economics and regional disparity in Indonesia today. Beyond economics, Professor Esmara taught me three things: discipline, precision, and integrity. Those values have guide me and regional
from
disparity
lecture
at
we have
faculty,
data
economic and business,
so these are naturally
vice
so
rector,
that
rector,
basic course
and my
of,
current position.
relatively
And
small.
For
That,
this time,
but
I
do
would
not
like
produce.
thank you, Professor Hendra Esmara, and our responsibility to continue what Hendra Esmara advocacy. In his spirit of reduce, including into the inequality that I now present my paper entitled Extractive. Next. Next. Yeah. Extractive institution and the dangers of decentralization. Next. This is my outline. I would like to explain this. First of all, I would like to inform or to explain the contribution and core advocacy of Professor Hendra Esmara. We come here to honor of the legacy and the efficacy of Hendra Esmara. It is strength to me. It is strength to me. We come here without know what are his contribution, what are his legacy. That's why I would like explain first the key contribution and core of Hendra Esmara. Then I would like to reformasi at the test. I use here the term reformasi, not reformation, because reformation would be misleading. Reformation refer to the explanation related to the religious. That's why reformasi has used in academic atmosphere, and also World Bank used the reformasi. For instance, like the decentralization after reformasi, and also the NU Indonesia project also use reformasi. So the term reformasi is it is not wrong, but it is that used in academic discussion. Okay, after that, I look the outcome, and then I try to diagnose and predict what the prospect for reducing regional disparity and strengthen the law enforcement, and then later the conclusion. Next. Okay. This is the Professor Hendra Esmara contribution. So, what Professor Hendra Esmara standpoint? What Professor Hendra standpoint? He said development must be measured not only in aggregate growth, not only measured in aggregate growth, but in its distribution across region and people. This the Professor Hendra stand. Therefore, when he tried to measure the growth of the region at the time, there is no data. There is no complete data at the time. Therefore, he tried to make the framework regional GDP at the time. This is his first contribution. So he tried to develop regional GDP method and also measure disparity between Java and Outer Java. It is his first contribution. Later, he tried the spatial equality analysis. He tried to study income distribution gap, the regional disparity, and geographic policy. What Hendra Esmara contribution on development planning? In development planning, we can look or approve at the Pelita file. So if for the region, a long-term strategy. All this contribution shaping Indonesia development. That's the Hendra Esmara contribution. Okay. Next. So what the Hendra Esmara core advocacy? First, balanced regional development. At the time, he argued that Indonesia growth should not be concentrated in Java alone. His study on provincial GDP and inequality highlighted the need for the equitable distribution of resource and infrastructure across the island, all the island. Second, opportunity beyond Java. Professor Hendra Esmara emphasized that provinces outside Java, such as Sumatra, Kalimantan, and Sulawesi, had untapped potential. He advocated policy that would unlock the opportunities, reduce migration pressure, and foster balanced national growth. Third, regional autonomy. Long before decentralization was formally implemented in 2001, Hendra Esmara pushed for the greater autonomy at the provincial level. He believed local government should have the authority to plan and manage their own development supported by the accurate regional economic data. All this advocacy requires that Indonesia development have to inclusive, regionally balanced, and empower provinces beyond Java through autonomy and equity opportunity. This is the core advocacy of the Hendra Esmara. Then, after 2000, reformasi come, and then we would like to test, is it what Hendra Esmara advocacy alive or not? Therefore, we go to post Suharto. Next. Post Suharto reform created the institutional framework that allow Esmara consent, regional autonomy, balanced development, and opportunity beyond Java. Reformasi opened the space to test Hendra Esmara concern to prove the opening of opportunity for Hendra Esmara advocacy. It is necessary to pay attention the link between Hendra Esmara advocacy and reform mechanism after the fall of Suharto, as shown in the following table. Okay. Next table. Okay. Here, Esmara advocacy, and this is post-Suharto reform mechanism and this impact. As I explained, there are three Hendra Esmara advocacy: balanced development, opportunity beyond Java, and regional autonomy. All this implemented after Suharto fall or post-Suharto reform mechanism. First, we look at fiscal transfer and local autonomy. Second, empower provinces resource management and decentralized a law. This is in 2001. And what will like the impact? Yeah, reduce the central dominance, south uneven, outer island gain more agency, and local governments become key actor on development. This is, we try to link between Esmara advocacy and what is impact would like. This is okay. Next, then what Hendra Esmara would like can be when the reformasi implemented. Yeah, after this time, the more than 20, we look what are the results. So we can see the outcome. Yeah, next figures. Okay, this is the outcome of development of the country 2023. Look at national diagnosis confirm. National diagnosis confirm the Hendra not yet passed. Achievement and challenge after more than 20 decades of reform dispensation still, yeah, you can, this is the future development. It is we found in the long-term planning Indonesia. So there is here weak legal certainty and law enforcement, and also inequality between Java beyond Java. This is we saw. We can look, or we can find in the law 49 of 2024. This is we can find. So what can tell from this that the reform open space for democracy, decentralization, and institutional accountability, yet inequality, weak law enforcement, and governance gaps still remain. This is the result of our test. Okay, next. Okay. This evidence is not the end opposition statement. This is not yet of the end opposition statement. This is government on government statement. So what does the state itself admit? Three things, yeah, as I explained before, three things that we remind: one, inequality remain; two, governance gap remain, meaning weak law enforcement; and the reform agenda is unfinished because we decentralize power of the legacy, but and is not yet full and not accountability planning. This is the strongest evidence that more than 20 years after reformasi, we are still facing the exact outcome that Professor Esmara wrote about. Which brings us to the two core questions. Yeah, after this, yeah, which brings us to two core questions for this lecture. First, why has Indonesia failed to resolve development inequality and weak law enforcement despite decades of the reform? Second, what are Indonesia's prospects for reducing regional disparity and strengthening contribution, legal certainty, and law enforcement? This is, yeah, okay. How to answer this question? I try to use the analysis as the follow. This is my diagnostic framework. Argue that combined of the extractive institution and the dangers of the decentralization have produced outcomes such as inequality, uneven development, and fragile institutions. You can look from the figure, from the diagram. So it is the extractive institution, centralized power and resource control. And now centralized become increased. Second, oligarchy and patron network dominate the policymaking. Corruption and impunity undermine. This is from the extractive institution. From the years of decentralization, fiscal and policy fragmentation, local elite influence, uneven and weak capacity across region, corruption, patron politics, and weak accountability. This is become combined outcome. Development remain uneven and concentrated in Java, and institutions remain fragile, undermined by corruption and political influence. Next, now we look at the theoretical distinction between inclusive institution and extractive institution. Inclusive institution, look at first definition, system designed to distribute, system designed to distribute opportunity, power, and accountability broadly. This is, and then what is the characteristic? Universal property right, check and balance on power, incentive for the motivation and mechanism, and accountability applied all the included is elite. So the outcome is resilient society with the sustainable growth and broad prosperity. But in extractive institution, what is the definition? System designed to concentrate, system designed to concentrate power and resource among a narrow elite. This definition. So the characteristic like this: selective property right, supervision of innovation and protect incumbent, accountability flow down and only elites, power centralized, often authoritarian. So the outcome, Brick-led society prone the and collapse. This is now look at next. Now this I want to highlight what's the essence of oligarchy in Indonesia. We look from the Jeffrey Winters here, Jeffrey Winters. So we can find in his book about oligarchy. First, the extreme concentration of material power, well, too fast that it translates directly into the political dominance. Second, Indonesia democracy operates with the system where a tiny elite control enormous economic resource, shaping law, institution, and policy to protect their fortune. Third, economic inequality inevitably produces the political inequality. Even under democracy, oligarchy dominate because there will allow them to buy protection, influence election, and sub policy. Distinguish oligarchy draws empower by the wealthy from elites, empower the position or the status. After Reformation, democracy unleashed to white oligarchy, the same wealthy actor capture politics institution rather than being constrained by them. Indonesia challenged not democracy itself, but the failure to restrain oligarchy power within it. This is that Jeffrey Winters. Now, he said that now we want to make the to realize the what Winters relation related to the oligarchy in Indonesia. It is look at the aspect first, core power, material wealth concentration and the few hands. Implication for the Indonesia political decision serve well the defense. Second, system type oligarchy democracy. Election coexist with the elite dominance. And historical root, from suatu centralized control post 1988, this percent oligarchy adapt not disappear. Oligarchy adapt and not disappear. So what is the main problem here? Lack of the rule of law to constrain oligarchy. That's why corruption and equality persist. It is that we want to try. Okay. Look at next. This is you can look the who are the 50 richest in Indonesia. What is the main point here? That in 2020, in 2035, according to Forbes report, Indonesia reaches it is about 1/5 of the GDP held by the 50 richest Indonesia. 1/5. Okay. And next. This is Kuha. This is what is the player in the regional? That now perform the 9 Haji. This is the name, and this is the business empire, and this is what the key sector. What we are going to mention that all them are related to the party connection, and they are this is the we look the what is the distinctive feature and controversy about the 9 Haji. Next. Next. This is because they are extractive. They are business related to the extractive. So the controversy first, environmental impact. Coal mining and oil plantation have been deforestation, pollution, and ecological damage. And then political connection. Many members maintain close ties with the local and national politicians, raising concern about the oligarchy influence. Then monopoly concern. They are vertically integrated business, often dominate regional economic, limiting competition. And their wealth concentration depend on the inequality in rural and communities. Later we can see legal and regulatory legal and regulatory scrutiny. Okay, some have faced the investigation or dispute over land right, as explained by the previous president. And then taxation and also the environmental compliance, but there is no law enforcement for them. This. Next, this is the evidence. The next evidence. Okay, this is inequality and extractive industry area. Yeah, from the figure, it is clear that resource-rich province, resource-rich province are inequality hotspot where the extractive industry generate growth but also depend disparity and institutional fragile. This in Riau. What happened in Riau? East Kalimantan, Central Sulawesi, Morali, that is. And then South Sulawesi, North Maluku, Bangka Belitung, and also in Papua. So what happened in this provinces? We can highlight from the newspaper and other resource. Okay. Next, I try to highlight the dangers of decentralization. Yeah. First, I mentioned what the remit or explanation or their concern about the decentralization and what happened in Indonesia or Indonesia experience. I try to compare this. First, according to Remy, and that remind that decentralization can increase disparity because a better the autonomy while the poor region fall behind. So what happened in Indonesia? So decentralization has increased disparity because richest region are better poised to take advantage of autonomy while the poor region fall behind. So what the approved consent is applies to Indonesia. Now, decentralization can jeopardize stability because it weakens the central government ability to maintain fiscal discipline, coordinate national policy, and ensure cohesion. So what happened in Indonesia? Local government tend to fiscal facility and still facing capacity gap issue, redistribution issue, and stabilization challenge and productive efficiency. This is what happened in Indonesia. Now, decentralization can undermine efficiency because local government often lack the scale, expertise, and coordination need to deliver the services effectively. So what happened in Indonesia? Decentralization work best for the smaller scale local services, but fail to deliver efficiency in representative and nationally coordination sector. This is what happened. Now, I would like to more highlight about the fiscal perversity. Okay. This is what happened. This is my experience also from the many studies so like this. So what happened in region? Feasible project. Many districts invested heavily in new government office, monuments rather than improving school or clinic. That's why some country, some region has low the human development. Next, soft budget constraint. Local government often rely on central transfer to cover deficit, knowing that central government would just step in. Third, inequity. Resource-rich provinces like Riau and East Kalimantan capture large revenue while poor provinces struggle. Next, macroeconomic risk. So the central government had to impose strict rules on local borrowing and spending to prevent destabilization. This. Okay. I try to specificasi to specific province like East Kalimantan. This is province resource revenue a lot too strong local budget, but wide inequality with the poorest district. So redistribution weakened. This confirmed what the brought home concern. So Japa district, some improved services delivery in education health due to their proximity to the citizen. So allocative, if efficient, gain the possible. So in the remote district, like in Papua and Maluku, several capacity constraints led to poor services delivered and corruption. This is productive unrest. This is the fact now. Okay. So what Hendra Esmara concern not yet approved, but still going on. Okay, we look now the prospect for reducing regional disparity and stranger law because, okay, next. Okay, prospect for reducing regional disparity and strengthening law enforcement. So we look at the positive driver. Now, industrial downstreaming. We look fishing resource process to the resource region of Java. Okay, this is the positive driver. Smelter in Sulawesi, Morotai, and green industry in Kalimantan, and create new growth pole. And now the ikan expected, well, ikan can be deconcentrate political and economic gravity from Jakarta and pull investment in Eastern Indonesia. Third, fiscal transfer. This is the new rule regulation. Okay, but we look the negative side. All the structures change. Okay, next. Okay, this from the structural constraint. Yeah, still extractive institution still present. Yeah, for instance, selective enforcement, elite immunity for political financing, and mining land to cash. Regulatory overlap, central and versus region, and frequent omnibus chain create uncertainty for the investor and the small enterprise. Capacity local level, police, that judge at remote region face low capacity and low pay and high local procedures. This is okay. How the prospect based on the driver and the constraint, I try to how to reducing regional prospect to reducing regional disparity. This structure. Okay. Next. Okay. This I try to construct like this. At the left side, right side, reducing regional disparity. So we have to make data and good planning and open disaggregate, and then we improve the connectivity and invest in human capital. This is from the to reducing the disparity, and then from the left side is strengthening law enforcement. This is and selective enforcement, ensure impunity and local, and then accountability, strengthening this oversight of the representative office member, and also public oversight, and then capacity building, professional bureaucracy and not patron network. But it could be happen. It could be implementation if there is core condition. First, the political will and institutional reform.
Prof, I'm sorry. You have 1 minute left.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So this not fall by transferring money, it fall by the transferring opportunity. So, okay. Okay, next, the last, the conclusion, this. Next. Okay. This is my conclusion. Allow me to present my conclusion. First, yeah, the Hendra Esmara test unfinished, but not filed. We decentralize power and money, but we have not decentralized opportunity from the elite capture. Three-wide power, measure better, open disaggregate data, connect better, build the Eastern Indonesia, and then account better, and the selective enforcement. So, core coordination, political will, and the institution. This is that all our responsible for the next. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Werry, for such an wonderful insight for us, that we know that decentralization is not something that we can say that this is good or not for our country, but we also need to know about the institution in our country. And next, we will jump into the next session. We will get the question from the audience. Maybe 3 questions for this first session. For the online audience, you also can give the question in the comment box. For the offline, okay, please.
Check. Okay, thank you for chance. My first question is for Prof. Budy. So in your research, you find that the lack of local funds for small industries serve as a channel of the resource curse. And you also include topography as a control variable. Yeah. Conceptually, although we did not see the statistical test of the explanation of the topographic barriers, do you see that the topographic barriers such as the maybe the difficult road access in mountainous area could like weaken the effectiveness of those local funds if they were actually allocated like as a moderating variable? Because in your research and in the table the table 5, I guess, you mentioned the topographic variables. So do you see the chance as a moderating variables? And if so, does the policy in like mountainous areas require additional transfers or connectivity infrastructure to enable local fiscal capacity to function optimally? And then for Prof. Werry, I also have one question. So you mentioned that the downstreaming and IKN as a positive prospect, yet also acknowledge that oligarchs and extractive institutions remain strong. Yeah, and also the early evidence from smelters in Sulawesi shows that GDP rising, but inequality widening. But the paradox that I found is downstreaming or hilirisasi is heavily dependent on permits. Yeah, permits, land concession, and government contracts. Yeah, which is I think precisely those are the arena that where oligarchs play. And extractive instruction have like historically we know that played most strongly there. Yeah. So could downstreaming or hilirisasi and IKNs become like a new cake monopolized by the same oligarch, yeah, thereby strengthening rather than weakening extractive institution, yeah. So if that is the case, what specific policy is the most realistic to prioritize so that these projects actually decentralize opportunity without without waiting for total institutional reform, yeah. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Would we answer it laterally, Prof? Okay, Prof. Werry.
Thank you very much. First of all, we look what is the aim of the IKN. As I mentioned, that is to remove the activity in Java, in Jakarta to the outside Java. That's the main. And it. So how about the oligarchy rule here? That's your question. Yeah. No. So yeah, we back to the principle, like, where the money come or where the money go. Money go where there is the attractive region. What is attractive region? It depends on first the related to the infrastructure, and then bureaucracy, not related to the bureaucracy, and then the low cost. That's the main determinant where the capital go. So if the East Kalimantan do like this, probably the money will come there. That's my answer. So we cannot predict this now. And then what is the policy? So I think so not all region in our country has potential to the downstream industry. For instance, like Sumatra, our province, there is the many cruise oil in West Sumatra, factory of cruise oil. But the result, they export. Cruise oil export to other region. Why? Because this province not benefit for them, because we try to highlight more who are the owner of the cruise oil here. Still relation to the downstream industry in other region. Like in Jakarta or like in other place. So therefore, they not will they will not build or establish factory for the downstream industry in this province. It will is cheaper for them to send to their factory in other place. This is so we have to aware of this. We have to be aware about this. So not all region will benefit to downstream industry. So that's why every region should try what they have to do, how to attract their country for their investment, their region for investment. That's my answers.
Okay, next, Professor Budy.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. Yeah. Although my research do not really could answer that, because remember that the model has a kecamatan fixed effect. So well, we put control on topography, which is altitude, yeah. It is within a kecamatan. So within kecamatan, if you argue it is remoteness, they are actually in the same remoteness, and so topography probably doesn't matter. But if we, for example, take out the kecamatan fixed effect and trying to mention, then could be that every kecamatan actually get different, but that might not be only topography, because there are other characteristics of kecamatan that need to be taken into account. And so then you have a possibility to have a problem. This is bit technical, omitted variable bias. So then you would like to make sure that you avoid those things. You put a fixed effect within kecamatan. Now, I could put topography. I cannot put topography at the left-hand side as a channel, whether it is actually the reason in which village who has oil actually do not develop their other sector. I cannot do that. So I cannot really answer whether remoteness that actually creating this problem. Not really sure, because my main focus is only at one variable, which is whether producing oil got an impact on your other economy. So it is one weaknesses of doing causal inference. So we are not looking at the determinant of local economy. We are not looking at that, because when you do trying to do determinant, you will not be able to ensure that all variables are exogenous. If all your variables you can argue is exogenous, then your result doesn't have any meaning, which is bias. Yeah, so the way that we do statistics right now is looking at one variable, that tension, but make sure you could set up that variable as it is an exogenous variable. So then you could have a causal relationship. Yeah. But that's a good question, whether remoteness is actually a channel, whether they actually influence the performance of a village. Although my feeling it doesn't, because we're actually controlling at the kecamatan level.
Thank you, Prof. Werry and Prof. Budy. The next question coming from the only participant, Bapak Eko Atmaji from Universitas Islam Indonesia, Yogyakarta. This is the question for Prof. Budy. As we already known about the scheme of production sharing contract, with difference with the concession contract for crude oil exploitation in Indonesia. It is proven that the course of mining still happen in Indonesia, especially in oil, even though Indonesian government applied production sharing contract. Do you have any examples of different scheme that avoid the oil course? If there is one, can Indonesia apply this scheme?
I have a different research across country, comparing whether production sharing and a contract, production sharing compared to contract, yeah. But that's across countries. And it is indicate that production sharing tend to be better if the institutional quality in that country is also strong. So a lot of this result is actually require an institutional quality, then production sharing is actually perform better. But that is across country. Now, in my research, it doesn't really matters because we are comparing between village to village, and with the policy, whether it's production sharing or contract are imposed equally. So all villages will have the same rule at the time. So the one that is an issue over here is that only because you have oil mining activities, all the people in the village are just depending on the oil activities rather than being creative, developing other activities in the economy. So that is what being discussed in my research, not so much on the contract system. Yeah. Although, as I mentioned, I have another research on those things that maybe sometime I could present it as well.
Okay, thank you, Prof, for the answer. And I think that because of the limited time of our seminar for today, we could not accept any questions from the participant, but I hope that we can do more discussion outside of the seminar later. And thank you for Professor Budy and Professor Werry for your time, for giving your insight in front of us for today. But before we close our meeting for today, I would like to invite Bapak Hefrizal Han and Bapak Ferry Andrianus to give the token of appreciation for our speakers for today. The committee. Okay, please giving applause for our speakers. Okay, and the certificate for the Professor Werry. Please giving applause. Okay, thank you, Pak Udan and Pak Werry. Okay, we will take a picture with all of our speakers for today. Bapak, Ibu, please come join to take a picture.
Pak.